Movie Speak.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Let the Movie Speak. My name is Travis.
My name is Justin, and this is the year 2023.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you just gave away in the production cycle how many weeks we haven't been productive. That's okay.
No, not really.
Yeah.
No one's been tuning in since like 2019.
That's
so
true.
It's okay.
If you bums could boost the numbers a little bit, it would
Yep.
be. We would probably have a little bit more impetus to get off our butts. But anyway,
Did we just call our listeners bums?
Bums. Yeah. We
Wow.
talked about our butts. We talked about them as bums. So it's
a lot
off
of
to
bees
a great
getting
start.
thrown around.
We are headed toward the end of the 50s. We're on the second to last film in our list, and I think it's going to be a different episode, Justin.
I think so. it remains to be seen because we haven't finished
We're not
the
there
episode.
yet. Yeah,
But I feel like because one of us watched the whole movie
correct.
and the other one didn't,
Correct.
I feel like that'll lend a slightly different flavor.
Yes. So this is what I propose, Justin. And listeners, you can pick up your pen pads and vote now in real time.
Yeah, give us a call. All lines are open.
All lines, all four. I suggest we talk about Some Like It Hot right now. How does that sound to you?
Let's do it.
Okay, so we're going to do the lightning round background info and our experience with the movie. Justin, have you ever seen this movie before? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, I have when I was a lot younger and I barely remembered anything other than them playing in a band. Okay, this is based on a 1935 French comedy with the same basic plot called Fanfare of Love. It was this is one thing about this movie that I want to just get out of the way. It was nominated for so many Oscars. It's just
What was going on in 1959?
well, this just happens, right? Like the Oscars fall in love with certain things, and in this era especially, it is not this way anymore. But the big brassy studio comedy was one of those things that it definitely like fell for, right? So this was nominated for director, actor for Jack Lemmon, adapted screenplay, cinematography, art direction, and costume design. Justin,
Big whoop.
yeah, no big deal. It makes it onto Ebert's Great Movies list. It is on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Laughs at number 1, Justin.
No kidding.
Yes, it is also listed as the best comedy from a 2017 BBC poll. Like just best comedy, period. Best one ever.
That's the best humankind has done, huh?
Yes.
Sophocles, take a seat.
Okay, so all of that background is to say it stars Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon and Marilyn Monroe, and it's directed by a guy who we're watching his third movie of this season. Justin, this is a movie about two musicians, two dudes who are in a jazz band, and
Two jazz cats.
exactly they're skibidi bopping and that too, and then they see somebody get shot by a gangster named Spats Columbo.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, and then they have to go on the run and dress as women, and they're in a women's band, and that's the whole hook, right? Is they end up on the run and they have to wear dresses and wigs and stuff to hide from the bad gangster people. So, Justin, give us the truncated version that this movie, in your opinion, deserves. What did you think of Some Like It Hot?
Well, listeners, if you're not familiar with the term, what you've just heard is the dictionary definition of the term setup. I didn't finish this movie.
Right.
Travis, maybe it's because of who I am and what I believe, or maybe it's because I'm a product of the time I'm living in. Like we just said, it's 2023 now. This is well past, I guess, a decade of Me Too happening. Maybe it's my faith. I don't know. Whatever it was, this movie hasn't aged well. And so we've talked, Travis, plenty of times about how if certain folks exist in movies just to be kind of objectified in one way or the other, then I feel like we've noted that was something we've been aware of. To me, this movie represents more of a sharper turn towards kind of the like what happens later in cinema in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and just kind of normalizing sexual content in movies. That's not to say anything in this movie specifically is like, holy cow, why is everyone, doing naked cartwheels all the time or something? That's not in this movie. But it's just the way that really Marilyn Monroe is used. Again, in the for full disclosure, listeners, I've seen a total of 7 seconds of this movie. So I feel like I'm well acquainted with
You're a
it.
scholar at this point. Yes.
I am a scholar. Yeah, the paper is coming out soon. Anyway, yeah, I didn't finish, and not necessarily even because I saw this and just thought like, oh, my soul is cut in two. I cannot stomach this anymore. I guess I just felt it was kind of stupid, kind of base, kind of low. And it's not the only movie in the 50s, even, Travis, that has has been one or all of those things. I guess it was just the way it was handled. And alas for this podcast and for all of you listening and going, how dare you make an episode called Some Like It Hot and you haven't even watched it. But fear not, because Travis has watched it. And Travis, I feel like even though we watched different amounts of this movie and we might have had different reactions, I feel like at least some of what I said ultimately you might have had a similar takeaway on.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's a very as much as all that background would have you believe that this is the Citizen Kane of comedies.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's very remarkable. Like I think it's unremarkable in a lot of ways. I think Justin, the my take about the Marilyn Monroe depiction and the way she's used is the right word.
Yeah.
Is unfortunately it's all too like common, right, with her. And
Sure.
starting to be common for the time, like but she's a special case, right? And like much has been written and depicted in other, movies and books and biographies and reporting and whatnot. So I'm not gonna like do a bad regurgitation of all those things here, but I will just say like there are sequences in this movie that take on a very different feel when you realize that like her arc ended the way that it did in real life. And so like certainly she's a sex symbol, like that's what she was in popular culture, and whether or not she fought against that and did so unsuccessfully or like whatever, like there's a whole conversation there that's worth having. I just don't feel like this movie is the one worth having it over, really. It's just,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think there's a couple things going on in this movie. One of them is a really like hokey gangster plot, and one of them is like the result of that these dudes have to go on the run and be in a girls band and dress as girls. And then like the entire Marilyn Monroe of it all sort of shoots for two things. It shoots for the sort of sex appeal, kind of draw the audience in with Marilyn Monroe as an object, and it also tries to bring in some sincerity near the end of the movie, where like she and Tony Curtis's character actually like fall for each other for real, and like he reveals himself to be like a dude and not a weird looking woman who's too tall and like whatever. None of that lands because everything in the movie is so ridiculous. Like there's no real room for sincere like payoffs. I think the last line's kind of funny from a comedic timing perspective. And like, I think that like what the movie does with some comedic timing is good and kind of has some modernity to it. There's one specific sequence where they cut back and forth between what's happening with Tony Curtis's character and Jack Lemmon's character, and every time they cut back to Jack Lemmon's character, he's like dancing with as his female like character, in disguise, to say. I don't think this movie has, just for the record, I don't think this movie has anything to say about identity, like gender identity or anything like that. It is.
Oh, but Travis, that's all the talk of the town these days.
I know,
is that
but
it does.
It doesn't. Here's why. They're dudes in dresses, and that is all the movie ever purports them to be. They are literally in hiding.
But Travis, they couldn't be so bold back then. They had to
No.
secretly get it in.
It's just not. It's just not. And it's stupid to try to retrofit this movie as saying something that it isn't.
Maybe
Anyway,
stupid, but it pays for certain people's salaries at certain institutions.
It
Please
could.
continue.
Yeah, it could be. It could be working on that level for some writer for someplace now. What I'm trying to say is, I think the only thing that this movie is really trying to say and sort of scuttling at and failing at times is that's kind of interesting is, okay, you've got like the world's biggest sex symbol, Marilyn Monroe. Like she is the epitome of an objectified person, and you put her in anything and she's going to draw audiences because she's going to have the haircut and wear the thing and do the dance or whatever. And then they put these two like kind of major comedy stars, Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon, in a movie, and they basically play the like walk a mile in my shoes game for a lot of the plot. That's kind of the hook of the movie. And so there are times in the movie where you're watching them get like hit on by a dude over and over and over again. And it's also like they're not pretty women. They're not good looking. They're not like convincing in any way. So I think there's something that's trying to be born as an idea of social commentary there. It's just like, I think this movie is too commercial of a piece to ever succeed at saying those things. I don't think it really says anything. I don't think it's particularly funny on any level. I think it's very unremarkable. And it unfortunately does cast Marilyn Monroe in the light that you least like to see in whatever year you're viewing it, especially now with hindsight being 2020. So final thoughts, Justin. Would you say Some Like It Hot is worth people's time?
I don't. You have to come back at a later episode.
Okay. I would.
How about you?
I would say probably not. Like, I don't know. If you're trying to knock off all these movies that are on these insane lists, like it's the greatest comedy ever according to AFI, and it's the best comedy according to the BBC poll from 20. Okay. If you feel like you have to watch those, watch it. But I don't think it's going to blow your mind, and it's probably just going to kind of bum you out a little bit because it's not all that funny. So. Well, that's it for today, folks. No, I'm just kidding.
Next week.
We have other things to talk about that are, I think, more interesting, Justin, than Some Like It Hot, and perhaps more profitable for me and you, because I haven't heard about all the things you've seen, and you haven't heard about all the things I've seen. So we're going to spend a little bit more time this week in the What Did We Watch This Week section. Okay, I think it's been long enough where we each probably have a couple. So you want to kick it off and give me one of the ones you've seen?
Okay, so I saw something that I think you saw a while ago, Travis, probably when it came out. 2018's Doc, which is slang for documentary kids.
Ooh.
Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Yeah.
About good old Fred Rogers. You have seen that, right?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I saw it probably the year it came out, but right after it wasn't in theaters anymore. I don't think I didn't see it in theaters.
Very impressed overall by the way this doc is crafted. And I think it does something kind of remarkable in that it talks about its central person without, deifying them and without... there's usually this duality in documentaries, unless it's Werner Herzog doing it. It's usually like we're going to do a piece on somebody, and it's going to be like whatever that Roger Stone doc was that came out a few years ago. And it's like that person is just the devil. That if you're going to do a doc on Hitler, I mean, it's not like you have a lot of choice. Not saying Roger Stone is Hitler, but I'm just saying, like that. So for Roger Stone, who is just like a dude that's controversial, the point of that doc is just like, hate this person's evil.
Yeah.
Whether or not you agree with that, I think that's the point of the doc. Whereas, Mother Teresa, the documentary, it's like, actually, was she Jesus come back? But this movie, I feel like, just paints an honest picture of Fred. I never get it never feels like this movie is trying to elevate him above what he was or bring him down lower than is like, real. And So it feels honest, and yet it's like, how was this guy so remarkable?
Yeah.
you know. And so I would definitely recommend this just because of I didn't realize Yo-Yo Ma was a friend of Fred
Yeah.
Rogers. I thought that was very cool. It's interesting to hear like from his kids. Again, one of the things that clued me into this being honest is when they interview one of his sons. I don't remember if it was John or Jim, and they're like, it's pretty hard having your dad as like the second coming of Christ. And just that idea of like, gosh, what might have that been like? If Fred Rogers felt like he had to be on all the time for his kids, even.
Yeah.
So in one way, it's good to know that he wasn't just like a demon behind closed doors or something.
Sure, that would be a real bummer.
that would be sad. Yeah, he wasn't like a Bill Cosby or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
That's
a good
was,
comp. That's a really good comp. Like Bill Cosby was viewed as America's dad forever and ever, and so that particular news was like, it was basically like if you had heard Fred Rogers like killed puppies and kept them in his freezer or something. It was like,
right.
Yeah, no. I think what struck me about it was what you're saying. It's like most of the time a documentary seems to be the conceit of it is like, oh, there's something like controversial at the center of the story, and so this will make a good documentary. And in this case, it's like, well, this is a good documentary, but for all the opposite reasons. It's like he is. The truth of the story when it comes to Fred Rogers is he was even more of a force of sort of pure good in the world than you expected it to be. And it's done with a lot of care, I feel like.
Well, and I found it so interesting that, as one person pointed out, the Mr. Rogers TV show was just the complete opposite of what makes TV good.
Yes.
There's no money in set design. There's an unlikely star. It's slow.
Yeah.
And yet it's awesome. And so, and in my opinion, and I'm sure the opinion of the folks that put this together, that's because what is more powerful than any of those things? It's true, actual love.
Yeah.
And that is what this guy just exudes, is just love for kids, just for people though too, you know? And I think that is so foreign to our kind of understanding of how to interact in the world. Like there's no tit for tat with Mr. Rogers. It's just like, nope, I'm just gonna love you. I feel like I should do that.
Yeah.
And so I found it really. Do you remember that part, Travis, where I forget who the interviewer is, but there's a clip from an older interview, and the guy's like, "So tell me, Fred, are you square? Are you straight? Are you a gay man? You know?" And it's just like. Because it's so foreign, like why would anyone possibly just
be kind.
Love me? And and I don't know if you remember, but how Fred responds to that guy is he pulls out one of his puppets and starts talking to the guy. It's a good trick. I should try that. Yeah. But
okay, so I'm looking at this director's filmography. Have you done that with this guy, Morgan Neville, the guy who directed it?
No, I have not.
Okay.
What's Morgie done?
The only reason I bring it up is because I've seen a few of his other things and they're all awesome. And there's some stuff on here I haven't seen. 20 Feet from Stardom. Did I tell you about this documentary?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I haven't seen it.
It's about backup singers, like of some of the most famous like stage acts you've ever seen. And it's amazing, especially if you like music. 20 Feet from Stardom. Rules. So good. Worth your time. There's something called Best of Enemies, which is about Gore Vidal versus William F. Buckley debates. It looks kind of cool, actually.
That's probably cool.
Yeah. It's called Best of Enemies.
And I'm seeing he did a Muddy Waters doc.
Yeah, and a Yo-Yo Ma. Like, I need to watch all this man's documentaries, I think.
Yeah. I think that should be our whole season.
Yeah. I've also seen the show Abstract, which is really good. He does a couple episodes of that. Okay, so check out Morgan Neville, especially his Oscar winning, right, documentary.
Yeah.
Won't You Be My Neighbor? It's good. It's good, and I have not seen the Tom Hanks thing, which is the real whatever. I say real version. That's so stupid. It's less real than what we're talking about. The Tom Hanks version of this thing, I have not watched it yet because I didn't think it was good casting. I think that's kind of a hot take. Anyway,
no, I'm actually Travis. That's super interesting. I'm with you on that, and I think I don't know about you, but like I grew up with Mr. Rogers, right? And I don't need to see anyone play him You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of the same thing. Like, it's a little hard for me when, like, not on Saturday Night Live, but if there's like a feature length movie and they're like, and Kevin Spacey, well, not him because he's not allowed to act anymore, but it's
Right,
like
right.
Kevin Spacey is Donald Trump. It's like, well, Donald Trump's a lot. I don't like.
He's a lot.
I don't
Yeah.
like. Yeah, I don't think so.
Sure.
I know what that guy looks like.
And sounds like, and yeah,
But
exactly.
and so for Tom, I love Tom Hanks. I don't have a problem with him at all.
Yeah.
But it's to me, it's just like, why? Especially when this documentary exists. It's like,
Yeah.
you want to see the story of Mr. Rogers, go watch his show.
That's the thing. If this
Or
had come
watch
out
that.
10 years ago or 10 years after the documentary, I probably would have like totally no opinion on Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers. Like, oh, that makes sense.
Right.
But it doesn't make sense like 1 year after the thing won the Oscar. It's just, yeah. So I'll get around to it in like 10 years maybe, but not now. There's
Yeah,
other
stay
things to
tuned for that episode.
Yeah, hang tight. We'll be old,
It's coming.
gray-beard men.
Remember Mr. Rogers?
Okay, so what is worth my time this year, the year of 2023, but this is the 2022 movies, and it will definitely be part of the Oscars ceremony in some way, is the new Martin McDonagh movie, The Banshees of Inishiren.
Can we hear that in an Irish accent, please?
The Banshees of Inishiren. Yes.
All right, very good.
This movie, Justin, it's so in the pocket for who I am as a movie watcher. Like, it is. I love Martin McDonagh. Like, he's not done that many things. This guy, he's only directed 5 movies. He's done In Bruges, Seven Psychopaths, which is the only one of his I haven't seen. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and this, and some short film that won an Oscar. Anyway, this dude, I just love him. Like, he's a playwright who transitioned into filmmaking, so he has a very like playwright sensibility with his screenplays and his directing style too. I feel like is kind of a little stagey, which I like. Anyway, The Banshees of Inishiren is a very small cast. It's Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, the same 2 guys who were in Bruges. And Carrie Condon is Justin. Carrie Condon is
Yes.
the woman who plays Mike Ehrmantraut's daughter on Better Call Saul, and she
I know.
freaking rules. She's so good.
Oh, good. That's good to hear.
She's so good. And then Barry Keoghan he's kind of like in a lot of stuff now. He was in Dunkirk and The Killing of the Sacred Deer, The Green Knight. He's been in a bunch of crap lately. He plays the Joker in the deleted scene from Matt Reeves' The Batman. Have you seen that?
No.
Okay.
I didn't know that was a thing.
How have you not seen this? You don't need to watch it because it's stupid. It's just like the Joker. They never show his face, and Batman goes to prison, and he's like, "I need information," and the Joker's like, "I'm the Joker," and he's like, "Give me the information," but I'm the Joker. And anyway, they cut the scene because it's stupid. Anyway, The Banshees of Inishiren rules. It's about 2 guys. Let me give you the plot of the movie, Justin, and you can tell me if you think it sounds interesting. The Banshees of Inishiren is a movie about 2 men who live on a small island in Ireland. This is in the 1920s. And so it's a very slow pace of life, very rural. There's like 10 people there. And the movie is about these 2 dudes who are friends and what happens when one of them decides, I don't want to be your friend anymore. That's what the movie's about. And that's literally the entire conceit of the movie. And then things happen, like it goes places, but that is sort of the germ of the idea. It's like if you were to sit down and write a story about 2 dudes who live in this time, in this place where you don't really have your choice of friends. And he just decides, for reasons, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. And that's the whole movie. It's very like intimate, and the performances are amazing, and the photography is amazing. I had a conversation with someone about this movie who I didn't know. I was just recommending the movie because I just watched it and was like nerding out about it. It's like, oh my gosh, this movie's so good. I watched it last night. It blew my mind. And the person I was talking to, it's like kind of a friend of a friend. And she was like, I was on that island 6 months ago. And she like whipped out her phone and showed me all these pictures of Inisheer, the island where this movie takes place. And it looks like this is, 1920 in the movie. It hasn't changed at all. They had to scrub out some telephone lines in the movie.
Yeah.
But other than that, the picture she's showing me and what I saw in the movie are like this place is just one of those untouched, beautiful, So Justin, you will love this movie. I have no doubt. You will
Okay.
love this movie.
I'm excited to watch it.
It's good. What else did you watch this week?
Well, I watched Babette's Feast. Have you ever heard of this movie, Travis?
No, but could you say it with more theater, please? Babette's Feast. Okay, that's not true. I've heard about this somewhere, somehow, but I don't know when or where.
Well, this came out in '87.
Yeah.
It's a Danish movie, but we know about it probably, or it's more known in America because it actually won the Oscar that year for best
foreign language
film.
Oscar. Okay.
Man, just like when you're talking about the Banshees of Inishiren, or is it Inishiren?
The movie is called The Banshees of Inishiren, and the island nowadays is at least she called it Inisheer, and she was there. So I don't know. Gaelic's weird. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, so it's Inishiren and okay, got it.
Babette of Inishir's Feast in Sheeran. That's the movie we're talking about.
So just like that other movie you were talking about,
Yeah, that other movie.
This movie it takes place in a very rural setting.
Yeah.
On the western coast of not I was gonna say Ireland, but that's not true. That's a lie. In Denmark, because it's a Danish film.
Sure.
And it's the late 19th century. Actually, I'm sorry, early 19th century. It takes place over many years. Doesn't really matter.
Okay.
And so it's about these two elderly sisters that live alone and kind of have their own pietistic, Protestant Puritan enclave. And these two sisters, when their father was alive, he kind of led this enclave. He's dead. Now they're elderly, and they're kind of all that holds it together. And they also have this French woman that appears at their door and is looking for refuge in Denmark, and she has nowhere else to go. And I don't even really want to give the idea away of why this is called Babette's Feast, but it is so good because so you're talking about the scope of the story in the Banshees movie of the island of it sounds like the gangsters from Some Like It Hot have come back for vengeance.
Sprats Maloney, or what are they? Little Bonaparte. There's one later that's called Little Bonaparte.
Little Bonaparte. That's a good name. Ridley Scott's coming out with a Napoleon movie this year,
right?
Travis.
It's called Little Bonaparte.
It's called Big Bonaparte. You take that back.
That's what Napoleon would say. Because he thought he was bigger than
apparently
he was.
He wasn't that small, actually.
No, but it became a thing. I think people started... It's
become a thing.
It's like Trump's small hands. It's like,
Right, yeah.
It's a thing people make fun of.
Even though he's dead for hundreds of years, that guy was short. What a loser.
He was dead, but in a tiny little casket. Okay.
So, this movie, like we were talking about Mr. Rogers, Doc, this is such a great picture of what unworldly love looks like.
Yeah.
And it is just a treat if you want to just see clean, perfect cinematography.
Yes.
That is not in a hurry, but also not, how Travis, sometimes the Academy, especially, is, in my opinion, really bad about this. It's like a movie comes out and there's some good cinematography, but it's painfully slow. It's are we watching still portraits?
Assassination of Jesse James. That's the movie you're talking about.
Yeah,
and it's my boy Roger Deakins. He's the man.
I know.
But nothing happens. Yeah. Nothing happens in this movie. Or the Nebraska movie with Bruce Stern.
No,
but Justin, it's in black and white. Don't you understand?
Oh, I'm so stupid. Yeah, no, it's just it's not artful, right? Because it's like the art in the medium of film is that it's moving. So don't just show me something that's still for 5 minutes. It's not
for me.
Pleasurable.
It's not for movies that don't move are not for me.
That's not for me. It's a motion picture, but it doesn't move. Pass.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, it's fantastic cinematography.
Yeah.
This movie's, I feel like this is one of those interesting movies where the language barrier doesn't really exist as much.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that, Travis, just because some of this movie is in French, and you know how I feel about that. But most of it's in Danish and Swedish.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware that there's a lot of similarities between Danish and Swedish and English. For instance, Travis, come in Danish is pronounced come in. So anyway, there was just fun things like that. And
then the
humor,
subtitles that you had on said "come in."
yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, okay, got it. I wrote that down. It's really fun when the humor so easily carries over, even it doesn't matter if there's subtitles or whatever. So this is one of those movies, can't recommend it enough. Think it's just a real pure treat, and I think everyone that likes movies should do themselves a favor and go watch it.
Yeah. Well, we should do a tradesies, Justin. You should watch Banshees and I'll watch Babette, and
that's a great idea.
We'll do little swapsies because they seem like they're in the same ballpark of what kind of movie they are a little bit.
And Babette's Feast is on your favorite HBO Max right now.
Banshees? Yeah, Banshees is on HBO Max too. So
you know what? Same bat time, same bat channel. We're going to do that.
Okay.
It's going to be good.
Let's do it.
But now I feel like you have something else to bring up, Travis.
Yeah.
Another movie.
Yeah.
That's maybe not Banshees.
Well, there are screeching creatures in this universe. It's pretty close to Banshees. There's screeching creatures. There's swimming, swirling, warbling creatures. I went and saw... Justin, I learned the ways of water. I went and saw Avatar: The Way of Water. Oh boy! So
was it a sold out showing?
It was very full. Every freaking theater of this thing is very full. So okay, what was our take? Everyone and their mother saw Avatar in 2009. Everybody saw it. Like I saw it in theaters. Did you see it in theaters?
No, I haven't seen it.
Wow, you haven't seen it. You're the only person on earth. Okay, so I saw
haven't.
You're the only dude. Someone should interview you. They should sit you down with James Cameron and be like, Jim, this is the guy. This is the one.
This is him. Yeah.
And they'll be like, what the crap is your problem?
And I'll be like, well, you objectified the blue people. And I was not okay with that.
Okay.
You should have been wearing more water clothing.
Yeah. I mean, I was so underwhelmed by Avatar 2009. It's not really my thing. I like James Cameron here and there. He's definitely not my favorite director, but he does do like good blockbuster third acts, and you can't like deny that the third acts in both of these movies are well done from a blockbustery movie, kind of popcorn satisfaction perspective. Anyway, the only reason I saw Avatar: The Way of Water was because nothing else was out at the time that I wanted to go to the movies. It was like 17 different screenings of Avatar: The Way of Water, 2D.
Is
3D.
That your review on Letterboxd, Travis?
Yeah.
3 stars. Nothing else was playing.
Nothing. I didn't even give it 3 stars.
What'd you give it?
I gave it 2.5.
Okay.
So here's the thing about Avatar. This goes for Avatar and the new one, but I'll say this kind of freshly about the new one. These movies take a lot of freaking time and effort, and they're very detailed in the way that they're constructed. But they're not for me. Like what I'm watching is not a thing that I would continuously choose to put into my eyeballs because it looks like a very, very well done video game cutscene. It just does. This level of CG is so advanced that, for one, the motion capture acting in this movie is very good. Like, it's the best version of I'm actually watching an individual person's performance, and it kind of just looks like they're wearing a costume more than I'm watching an animated character voiced by Sigourney Weaver, Kate Winslet, whoever the actor is underneath. So like there's some stuff that's done really well, and like some visuals that are impeccable, and some world building that is, interesting. But there's no original story like to be had here. You've seen this story. You have heard this story. You know what's gonna happen. Like there's nothing unique here. If you just go watch like Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas, the first Avatar, you've seen this movie. Like all of the story beats are like not unique. And so I think if what you care about when you go to a movie is that you pay for a ticket and you feel like you've gotten a good roller coaster ride, then I don't think anybody really does it better than James Cameron. But I just don't. That's not really what I want out of a movie. Most of the time, let's say, because I like an action movie. I'm fine with an action movie, but I would much rather spend 3 hours in Middle Earth than I would in Pandora. It's just because there's more meat there, on the bone as far as the story.
That's definitely our bias, right? We're doing a podcast called Let the Movie Speak.
Yeah.
So if your movie doesn't have a lot to say, chances are we might not be super jazzed about it. So there's a couple quotes, Travis, I'd like to read to you from the Hollywood Reporter's review.
Please.
Okay. And
I can speak with authority because I have learned the ways of water, as I have already stated.
Oh, goodness. I thought you were looking a little blue today.
Yes.
Okay, so here's the first one, which sounds really similar to something that you just said. This is the quote. Skeptics who watched the trailer and dismissed the long time coming Avatar sequel as a video game aesthetic hybrid of photorealism and animation that ends up looking like neither may not be entirely wrong.
Yeah.
So-
That is so true. It is so trying to be photorealistic. And it's so deep. Like this movie, this is totally nerdy. Some people might not care about this, but Justin, movies typically are shot in 24 frames per second. That is how films.
Right. This is all 48.
Well, it is and it isn't. It is.
Oh.
There are sections of it that are shot in 24 and sections of it that are shot in 48. And 48 frames per second is something that our eyeballs are not used to when we watch films. That is something.
I don't like it.
Yes, that is something you see in video games and other kind of forms of animation. But movies are even like Pixar movies that are like high def, top of the line animation. They're 24 frames per second. And what that does is it makes things blur and smooth in a way that where our brains can process. And so this movie uses the 48 frames per second thing, which is not the first time it's ever been done. I think Ang Lee has done it for
Peter Jackson did it.
Life of Pi. And yes, this is why the Hobbit movies look like dog doo-doo, because they don't look like a film anymore. They look like a video because it just looks weird. And so this movie does. One thing I will say is the Hobbit is 48 frames per second, but it's like that. Like I think 100% of the time. I can't remember. I kind of blocked those movies out of my mind. But when this switches from 24 to 48, it is the funkiest looking thing. Like it goes from 48 frames per second and it looks so like hyper smoothed out and like high def back to, they just cut to a new shot and it's back to 24 and it does this weird kind of like herky jerky looking thing. It's not good. It's not a good thing. It's an experiment that like it's rotted in a jar on the countertop as far as I'm concerned. It's not good.
Wow.
Okay,
so
hit me with another one.
Here's my second quote, and it kind of comes with two questions. One, it sounds like your critique about the narrative is truncated pretty well in this sentence. In terms of narrative, sophistication, and even more so dialogue, this $350 million sequel is almost as basic as its predecessor, even feeble at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and this is how they go on to say, don't worry about it. But the expanded biodiverse world building pulls you in. The visual spectacle keeps you mesmerized.
Sure.
The passion for blah, 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 blah. But what do you think, Travis? So this is $350 million to make this movie.
Yeah.
And yet it doesn't really have a narrative behind it. But you want me to watch pretty pictures. That's kind of the way I read
Here's the thing. It has a narrative, I think. Like, it's not fair to say that it doesn't have a functioning narrative. But, like, the narrative is so secondary to the visuals. It is so second. Like, you could... There are 12 different reasons why the main character and his family would have had to move from their one tribe to the water tribe to learn about the whales and learn how to control the water animals and all the things that happen in like the second act of the movie. The actual plot and narrative doesn't matter. Like they wanted to get them from here to there and do a thing and show you some new creatures and then have the third act play off this way. The story is trying to say some stuff. You know, there's stuff about like a father's duty to protect his family and a mother's, strength and standing up for her children and a character feeling like she doesn't have a place in the world. And so she needs to find her own I don't know. There's like, there's stuff in there, but like none of it is particularly important to like what's actually the real thrust of the thing, which is like to make you feel like you went down the big drop on the roller coaster after the thing is over. That's what James Cameron's trying to do. And he knows what he's doing. Like he builds up, and there's a lot of setup for a lot of payoff, just like in T2 and just like in Aliens and just like in all the movies that he's made that are like he knows he's a technician when it comes to how to structure a blockbuster. And so he does it well. But like I don't really like the world. Like I don't like blue alien people, and like I just don't. It's very derivative. Everything you're watching is very derivative of like Tolkien, but also like Warcraft, but also I don't know. Like there's not a lot there that's like new and fresh and different. So I don't know.
Let me ask you and I'm not trying to get either of us to pretend like we are some titans of philosophy or something silly. But in your opinion, having watched this movie, is it worth, like our question is like, is it worth your time? Would you watch it? So I guess you could answer it in that way. But like here, clearly he knows what he's doing, like you said, because even though this was an incredibly expensive thing to make, they're definitely making their dollars back.
Oh, yeah.
It's well past $1 billion already worldwide.
It's going to make like $1.5 billion, I think. It's going to make a lot of money.
It wouldn't be surprising, right? But I don't know if it's too big a question for this show, but we'll try it anyway. Does it really have, I mean, if it really is just kind of like a roller coaster ride, is it worth it? But more so than just like sitting there, like you as an audience member. Mm-hmm. But is it worth the years that this guy spent to make this? Is it worth the money, the world, the toil for what you get?
I think for him, right? Like I've heard enough of his sort of purpose and take of building the world of Pandora and wanting, this is the jokey thing is like, it's been 14 years, 13 years. Why do we need a sequel to this movie? Does anybody want this? And his argument is like, this is for him, this is his legacy because these are stories about conservation. Like he cares about conservation. And ultimately, the story boils down to like, a society where the world and the nature and everything is thriving. And then the people come in and they blow it all up and burn things and try to mine for whatever, So it's again, none of this is subtle. Like none of this is like particularly subtle. But I think the question for him would be like, is it worth it? Well, yeah, because if these movies make billions of dollars and people look back and reassess them in 20 years and think, oh, he was talking about conservationism, that was really important, and now I don't know, like.
Though that's super interesting. But if that is his take, isn't that kind of ironic in that the best thing that the critics seem to be able to say about this is that it's pretty to look at?
Yeah, blue people. I don't know. Like I don't think he's ever. Honestly, I don't think James Cameron has ever been a particularly good script guy, like dialogue, character arcs. I think he is like, I'm going to give you types. I'm going to 1, 2, 3 act structure this kind of perfectly from an action movie perspective. And that's what a movie is to me. Like, I think that's his thing, And so for some people, that's like, his movies are their favorite movies. They love T2 and they love Aliens and they love every third act of a James Cameron movie. But I just like, I'll watch that stuff, but it's never going to like keep me up at night going like, oh, but what about this part? How did they? No, I'm like, I've forgotten half of the 3-hour movie already and it's only been a week,
Travis, have you seen the Ryan Gosling skit on SNL about the font used in Avatar? Yeah.
Yes. And I heard recently in an interview, he was like, oh, it's kind of a funny sketch. I mean, I can't believe they made an entire sketch about the font of the movie. But guess what I said when I watched it? We're going to use that font on everything now. And so the new movie.
He showed them.
The subtitles are in papyrus in the new movie. And so I don't know if that was a real thing. So anyway, he obviously won people. Okay, Justin, before we wrap up today, I finally watched a movie that you have been nagging me to watch for a long, long time. And it's a movie that you very much liked called First Reformed.
Yes, Ethan Hawke, Amanda Seyfried,
Yes,
even Cedric the Entertainer gets a little part in there.
he does. And it's what Paul Schrader, so the
Paul Schrader, written and directed by.
writer of Taxi Driver, but not the director of Taxi
Yeah.
Driver.
Okay, so you told the audience already. They know I liked it. What was
Yes.
your takeaway?
I felt conflicted about this movie, and conflicted in a way. Conflicted in a way that I think the movie was intending a little bit. Like, I don't know how we probably. I don't know. It's old enough where we could spoil it, but like, I don't want to spoil the ending of that movie, man. Like,
Okay.
well, we could. I don't care. It's not my movie. I don't see how you get to the end of that movie and feel just so good about things. Like it to me, that ending is so like it is designed, and it's the way that it's shot and what's happening and the friendliness of it all. I don't know. There's something about the final sequence that.
Okay, I think. Hey, if you haven't seen this movie,
Okay,
listeners, you
here it
probably just
comes.
want to fast forward
Okay.
5 minutes or whatever. But
So-
Travis, go. So we don't have to talk so obtusely. Go ahead.
Yes, but let's back up so that I loved the movie. And then I got
Okay.
to the final, like maybe 25 minutes and kind of saw where it was headed and watched the ending and just sat there and just thought, wow, that was oof, like, oof. I don't think honestly, I'm not going to pretend like I'm some film genius. I don't think I fully understand what the movie was going for. And for that reason, I think it will probably reward me on rewatches. But basically, it's a movie about a dude who's the pastor of a small, old church in a town with a big, like a mega church also in it. And this big mega church has purchased the building and kind of helped to
Right, 'cause it's like-
refurbish it because
It's like a historic landmark.
Yes.
It has no real congregation. Nobody really goes there. But
Like-
the
like
mega
6
church
people
kind
go
of
there.
keeps
Yeah.
the finances flowing so it can stay open.
and it has like a little, you can come take a tour, and there's a shelf that's sort of like a gift shop. And anyway,
It
this
used to be a stop on the Underground
Railroad.
right?
Yeah. So the historical significance and whatnot. So anyway, Ethan Hawke plays this guy who was he's a few things, right? He is a veteran. He is a widower.
Yeah.
And he is a transplant. Like, he hasn't grown up in this place. And so that there's a lot of stuff going on with his character, right? Where he's alone and he's in this position of pastoring this church, but it's sort of like a symbolic role more than any real pastoral role, because
Right,
like you
there's-
said,
there's
like
no
6
congregation.
people go there. Yeah. And so I don't know what is this movie about? I mean, there's a lot of answers. I think Paul Schrader is trying to say something about institutional religion for sure. Otherwise, I don't know why you'd have the megachurch and Cedric and the Entertainer being sort of the mainstream. He's not even playing like a goofy caricature like
No.
black
He's
church
playing it pretty
pastor.
straight.
Yeah, he's playing like a mainstream evangelical like televangelist, but not a crazier one of
Right.
those
Not
people.
slaying people in the spirit or any of that nonsense.
Or like praying that God would blow COVID-19 away and, or whatever. Anyway,
Yeah. So I
Go ahead.
So I think it's important. If anyone doesn't know, Paul Schrader grew up in a super reformed. If you don't know, I don't. Good golly, Travis, I don't know how to break down Reformed theology for an
Yeah, don't
audience
try.
that might have no concept of
doesn't
Christianity. So look that up in your own time. But he grew up in a Reformed household, and he didn't see a movie until he was 18.
right.
And then when he did, he was like, "Oh, holy cow! I think I found my purpose in life." And so it's a good thing he saw that movie. But anyway, I view this movie very similarly to how I view Scorsese's Silence. Did you ever see that one?
No, not yet. It's another
Okay.
one you've been hounding me about.
So I mean, these are both guys that like they can. Scorsese is Catholic, and even when Ebert talked to him about when the Last Temptation of Christ came out,
Right.
Ebert's like, "Come on, man, you don't really believe any of this stuff, do you?" And Scorsese told him straight faced, "Oh yeah, no, I absolutely believe there's a hell, and I know I'm going there."
Right.
And so I think both of these guys, as they get older, they want to. Scorsese more so. It's more consistent, I feel like, in his films. But this is pretty loud and clear from Paul Schrader, in my opinion, that themes of theology and faith are still very much on his mind,
Sure.
and that he has not come to real peace about faith. And so, Ethan Hawke's character in this movie, Ernst, what a great name. Ernst, I mean, this movie could be called Crisis of Faith, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
'Cause
for sure.
this is really a guy that has not found peace in anything because of what he's been through, the loss of his family members. He's looking for some kind of understanding, some kind of peace. He's consulting different theological writers, even outside of the Reformed tradition, and he doesn't really find. And so I find this movie really interesting, Travis, because he says so many things in this movie where it's like they're not the tells of someone that has like their faith rooted in something like biblically. The only things he consoles himself in are things of the world. Like when he talks to that one lady that works at the church, and she's like, "Do you ever feel guilty about what we did?" Like they had some kind of affair or something, or maybe it's just that they had relations outside of marriage. The movie's not super specific about what the exact sin is that they think is a sin they did. And he says, no, I don't think God would call that sin, what we did, And so it's just this very kind of, it's like he's increasingly kind of creating this self-styled religion, which just to me, he delves further and further into until you get to the incredible ending. I'm not talking about the very, very ending, but just the kind of climax of the third act, Suicide Vest is all I'll say about that. And so I just find that like everything that you see in that final sequence to me, Travis, suggests that he has totally, he is like, I feel like I can bring up the book Pilgrim's Progress because second to the Bible, that's like the most printed thing in the English language in human history. So I don't feel like that. I hope that my intention is not to alienate people and go on some like, turn this into theology hour or something. But anyway, Pilgrim's Progress, if I can really quick, just makes this mention of how, even people like Pilgrim is supposed to be a Christian in the book, right? So even people that are Christians can still be tempted to despair, even to the point of killing themselves. That's talked about really clearly in that book. And so, to me,
for kids,
that's what happened. I mean, hey, you got to teach them sometime, Travis. We start when they're 3. Anyway. So, I mean, this guy, he's giving over to that. He doesn't see the answers, and he's not looking to the one place that would have answers, at least according to his tradition, like the ultimate authority would be the Bible, and he doesn't go there. He goes everywhere else. And lo and behold, he doesn't find answers that comfort him in any of those things. So then he ends up, so my interpretation of that ending, Travis, is that he's dead. He kills himself. You can't wrap yourself in barbed wire and then give somebody a hug and be like, that's okay. You're going to poke them or poke yourself to death. Either one of those things. So I see that as this kind of like, as your eyes are closing to this world, there's this last fleeting kind of hallucination of, oh, that's what I want. That maybe that will give me peace. But no, that's not going to give you peace either.
Yeah.
Because it's not what you're looking for. And then the movie's over. And yeah, like you, I just sat there like, ugh.
Yeah,
Man,
yeah,
that's a bummer.
it's a bummer, and I think it's clearly a bummer. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of freaking delicate stuff happening, I think, in this movie. Ethan Hawke is giving a very like nuanced performance. It's despair, like what the arc is sort of like a one of despair, one of someone who starts in a place and takes sort of fewer and fewer degrees of hope and just existing in the world anymore. And there's that, but at the same time, there's a whole other, like the subplot with Amanda Seyfried's character is like kind of the opposite. I don't know. There's like a thing going on with her where she finds some hope in him, even though he's not a hopeful dude as the story goes along. And so I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not really a movie you can you can't like I would hate to sit down and break this movie down sequence by sequence because it is so meditative and freaky.
Yeah, I agree.
Like there's sequences that are just like freaky and weird, and I think Schrader is, like you said, he's attempting to put to film some of the conflict that he's felt over the course of his life about faith and a crisis of faith and spirituality. And some of that is really personal. And some of that is like, he's like reaching out for something else that he doesn't quite understand or get yet, maybe. And so it's kind of this weird collage of feelings movie that where the narrative is like it's there and it's kind of puttering along, but it's not the most important thing. And just like Avatar, it's not. But honestly, it's not the most important thing. I think the story it exists. It's only as complicated as it needs to be to get you from the beginning to the end. And the movie is really about like what does it feel like to be in a I don't know, severely post 9/11 world and be struggling with looking back at the course of your life and everything that you've gone through, some of it traumatic, some of it joyous, and just sit there and not know, like not be able to fully reconcile the thing you have that draws you towards a spiritual truth or a higher power or whatever, and your doubt and you're looking at how crappy the world is. I don't know. There's a lot of that in this movie. And it's very pretty to look at, and it's very nice to look at.
Yeah, the movie where the guy kills himself, it's really pretty.
Yeah, it is though. Yeah. It's like it's one of those square movies that's kind of trendy now. People are doing things not widescreen because it's I don't know.
Right, it's like 4.3 aspect ratio or something.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's whatever. It's square. It's square, and people do square now because they realize for the longest time, oh, well, we have widescreen. We could do square. Let's make it square. The Lighthouse, let's make it square. Zack Snyder's Justice League, let's make it square. I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes I don't care and I just forget about it, and other times I think it's really purposeful and well utilized. And then there's the few times where I'm watching it where I'm like, this didn't need to be square. I don't know. This was kind of a neutral choice for me in the square department. Justin, is this worth being square? That's our final question of the evening.
Only if circles are not available.
Well, they weren't, so it's square, folks.
There you go.
Okay, well, hopefully, Justin, this was a different episode, but hopefully people heard some chit-chat about some things that maybe someone will watch something. Other than Some Like It Hot.
Yeah.
Although
look at the streaming data next week. Wow, rentals of Some Like It Hot are through the roof.
They are, and it's because it's the greatest comedy ever made.
Ever.
No one's ever made one better.
Nope.
No one will ever top it. Orson Welles' Citizen Kane, in a different genre, but it's a little better, I've heard. Next week, we are going to wrap up the 50s altogether, and we're going to talk about a movie that I'm very excited about. I've seen it a few times. I'm a fan already. I hope I become more of a fan. We're going to talk about Hitchcock's Vertigo, Justin. When's the last time you watched it?
Yeah, it's been like 10 years. I'm ready for a rewatch.
It should be great, and we look forward to closing out the 50s with you. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Happy 2023.
Let the movie speak!